Okay, so we're back in Digital Imaging 1, Virtual Classroom 5, I believe. And I'm going to go through the announcements, and then we'll go through what we're going to be doing today, and then a little bit about the future for the semester. What I've been doing with these virtual classrooms is I've been recording them and editing them down and putting them up on Talend. So worst case scenario, if we can't get everyone to communicate, hopefully you can listen to the recording afterwards and get what you need. Otherwise, I can attempt to chat with people who can't hear me. So we'll just do the best that we can. Okay, you're going to restart your computer. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on, and I'm gonna be online. So people, if they get in late or have a technical issue, we can address that later, hopefully as well. On the announcement that updated, I just want to go through the assignments. So, what I'd really encourage you to do if you have the time and energy is to complete any prior assignments, especially the in the moment images, because we're going to be using those as a pool of images that everyone will have access to on the collage project. So, it's going to be really important to have those completed. So, we're basically working on 6 and then 7. So if you can work ahead and finish both 6 and 7 if you haven't done so before Thursday, that would be very helpful. And then we're going to be reviewing and starting the montage project today. So we have the montage project and the collage project as the last sort of large projects. The collage isn't that big, but we do need to have those images in there to do. Once we set up the silhouette file in there, it's just a matter of arranging the images in an interesting way. The montage project, for a virtual version of this class, we're going to probably scale it down a little bit than what we normally do with that, but it's something that we'll get into after I'm done with the announcements here. So basically, let me go through the rest of these. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through the montage project, then we're going to review and critique like what we did last week, but with the ad revamp project. And I've moved the due date for that to Thursday. So if you haven't quite finished your review, get some good feedback and you want to make changes, that's totally fine. And always you're welcome to resubmit assignments. We're going to be a little bit more flexible on the due dates here as much as we can, but we do need to move forward on some things. So just do the best that you can on these. And then what we're going to do today is after we go through that, we're going to give you break time to work until 3:45. And then we're going to come back and we're going to just go through very briefly where you're at with the fruit plate project. And I've moved that back an entire week. So to give you more time to work on it, as well as to work on your other homework and things. But we're going to have today in class give you some time to work on it, and then Thursday you should have some time to work on it, and then over the weekend. But we do need to conclude that next Thursday. So we'll have a short little presentation from each one of you talking about your decisions during most of the 16th. Uh, so hopefully that'll help you with your time that you need on that. We're still working on what the final exam formats are going to be for a lot of the courses that are online now. And so what I have here is what I'm thinking of is 3/4 manipulative and 1/4 response. So it won't necessarily be short answers, but more like responding like, why did you do this? How would you do this? Given your experience so far in this semester. And then so what that means for the future is that the April 9th class, this Thursday, will be kind of an open lab. We'll show up, do attendance and announcements and any questions, and then come back at 3:45 to share progress on what we've been working on. And then the collage project will actually begin next Tuesday instead of this Thursday. What questions do you have regarding these changes in our assignments, if any? And you can ask them through audio or in the chat.
So the collage is starting then on Thursday then?
It's starting, the collage is actually starting Tuesday. So I had originally had it planned to start this Thursday, but I'm just moving that to Tuesday of next week for the collage.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So the montage we're still starting today, but I want to give people an opportunity to ask any questions on these changes. I don't see or hear any other change or any other questions. So go ahead and send those to me if you do need help or clarification. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the montage project and just kind of run through that. So there's the description here is that you're going to create something based around a theme. That's the idea of the montage. This could be anything that you're thinking of. It could be a hobby. It could be some students do portfolios. Some people do like favorite group that they follow, or it could be anything that you can think of that would be fun and interesting that you could get some materials for related to it. So if you're like, I love to cook, then what sorts of images, what sorts of things would you include in an 11 by 17-ish space, that would demonstrate your theme of cooking? And that theme word needs to be prominent as like your title or your headline in this project. And then you just use images to convey visually that this is something that's important to you. And you're going to be using the terms like hierarchy, proximity, contrast, in your design of this. But think of it as like just a visual manifestation of this idea. So if you are like a big fan of, say, like Queen or Beyonce or video games or a certain sport, right? Ice hockey, whatever that is, think about the images that you would have in this sort of montage. So you're going to be taking a lot of your technical skills from working with layers and masking, um, not necessarily so much colorization, although that is possible, but you're mostly going to be thinking like, if this was a project for a client and they wanted me to build this sort of large scale format poster that would be displaying, right? What would that look like? So if cooking is your theme idea, what kind of cooking really for you resonates visually, and what images can you find? So the images that we're going to be using in this project will be ones that you take. So we prefer not to use stock art, right? We've done enough of that. But what things can you take a picture of that would be representative? Or you can also do illustrations as well. So if you want to draw some things, but we do want it to be like sort of an overview of what you've been learning. So I will be looking at a lot of the things from like the Photoshop book through each chapter. So how do we use, text? How do we use layers? How do we use selections? And then for you as the designer, how do you convey this message, right? And then of course there's a written component that explains how you use this. So it's not just random things. I want you to do it with intent. And what we usually ask for is like a sketch, and this is something that you can draw on paper and then take a picture of and send it to Talon. And so we want like an idea of where you think these ideas will be on your page, and at what size or hierarchy or importance will they play. Uh, and your idea will probably change from sketch to finished project, and that's okay. But we want you to be thinking about organization, importance. What's the focal point? At part way through your montage project, we will be using the grid or the golden spiral to help you configure some of that. So if you're not familiar with those tools, I would start experimenting with them as well once you've turned in your sketch, or if you want to do it before on your sketch, it's fine. But I want you to be thinking very critically about what could this look like without it just being a jumbled mass of images, right? So that sort of like creative overlapping image thing will be more that we explore in the collage project. But for this, I want you to have a very clear message of why and what about this theme is very interesting or important to you. There should be, let me just take a look at the attachments. There are a montage examples in a zipped folder that's included. Just to give you an idea, what I want you to be thinking about is don't be limited by the 11 by 17 size of paper for this. When we would normally print these out, they can be a different size. What we do want them to be larger than 8.5 by 11. But if you want to make something into like a circular shape or a square shape or something like that, we can totally do that, especially, since we're just producing these as, like PSDs and PFD or PDFs. So I don't want you to get stuck uh, in the idea that 11 by 17 is the limitations of your borders on this. I want you to just think about when you're sketching these, what looks good, right? So you're probably familiar with like Piet Mondrian and others who've done diamond shapes or whatever, but really think about the idea and the structure of that and less about the paper size. So I have a question here. Yes, the ad revamp has been moved to Thursday by 2:30 to give you some more time. So I want to give you an opportunity to ask questions with me right now about the montage project. So I'm going to open it up. What questions do you have at this time? Is this anything about this confusing? Is this making sense? I'm going to make it visible so you can actually see it. There we go.
My question is actually about the revamp ad project.
Mhm.
And is I couldn't find any pictures of Ashley, or if that's her name.
If you follow the link to the website, the kid's website, there's at least one picture of her there.
All right.
So if you want to use and crop that in, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
All right, but is it required to have her picture?
I believe that it's the tertiary one. So yeah, so your client is basically saying, we want you to have a primary focal image, we want you a secondary product shot, and we want you to include this person who's who is basically part of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be fairly small, right? It has to be visually legible, but
Mm-hmm.
but that's, yeah, you're going to want to include that in there.
All right.
Yep. Her name on Instagram is Ashley Jeanette. I wonder if she changed her name, marriage or otherwise, at some point. Thank you, Olivia. So Seamus asked the question, how big does it have to be? Is this in reference to the montage project?
Yeah.
Okay. So think about, I'm just going to give you an arbitrary number. Maximum size in any dimension of 24 inches. The smallest size in any dimension, 8.5 inches. We want it to be larger than letter, so 8.5 by 11. So I guess 11 would be the smallest size. So nothing smaller than 11 inches and nothing larger than 24 inches. Does that help?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So think about the message and the images rather than like classroom size piece of paper. What other questions do we have out there? Does Let me ask you this, because we talked a little bit when we did the show and tell earlier in the semester. It seemed like people had fun with that. Um, why don't we have people just kind of mention what themes are coming to mind that they think they could create images for, whether it's around the house or from a portfolio or something. What are people thinking of when they think of a theme that they could design for?
Well, right off the back, just because I'm generally interested in it, like a shoe collection montage.
There you go. See? Some people have done pets, some people have done family. So I have a question from Livia. I have a lot of books and rocks, would those be topics? Do you mean like a theme being books or a theme being rocks? Is that what you're talking about, Ricardo or Olivia? Yeah, either is fine. Yeah, so if you're like a rock collector or you just whatever, you're into geology, go for it. If you're really into books, you need to think about, well, what about books is interesting, right? That I can have have as images here, how I can display that. Yeah, those are totally fine. And Ricardo, he's a fan of shoes. I might have a couple shoe montage. That'd be awesome. You're both going to present your ideas in different ways. So if everyone in the class did a montage on shoes, they would hopefully all reflect your own personality and your interest in shoes. Because it's not just shoes, like there's something about shoes. And that's what you're not just going to be a product listing, you're going to try to visually display like what about the shoes theme is of interest to me and how can I convey that. So like which shoes you include, what colors, what sizes, how you present them. Are they illustrations? Are they photos? Are they combination? So I think what you want to do is choose something that you're passionate about or interested in, and something that you can create or take images of. So a lot of this is you're going to be looking for things that you can take with your phone, or if you have like a camera you want to use, just go for that. Who else? Chalk drawing? Sure. Yeah, if that's something that you can go out and do and take pictures of, yeah. I mean, you can obviously replicate that in Photoshop with some brushes, but it won't look as real without spending a lot of time than just doing it. Pokemon collection, yes, totally. Yeah, so if you're like into games or something and you want that to be your theme, totally. I know I'm not into Pokemon Go, but a lot of people are, and obviously right now it's a little bit of a challenge to do, but yeah, definitely. If you're into cars or music, think about it. So what I'd like for you to do as part of your homework is sit down, think about some ideas, and do like a sketch or two. Like if you've got a few different themes, do a sketch for each theme, see which one you're more drawn to, and think about which one can I actually take pictures of. And then I want you to assemble a list of items, like an inventory. Think of this as like your photo shoot or your like list of ingredients that you would have in your design, and then just write them down. So a list and a sketch of what you think your theme's going to be, um, and then put that into Talon for this assignment. And this is like you preparing to sit down and work on this design. So if your boss or client said, "Hey, I need you to do like a magazine spread on this upcoming fashion trend out of Chicago, right? This collection that's coming out," then you would do some research and figure out, okay, well, what are the things that I need to show in this? You know, what clothing lines or what artists or whatever do I need to have in there? Or if someone's like, hey, we're going to be featuring like the farmers markets, you'd probably go and shoot fruit or vegetables or flowers or whatever was in season. So be thinking about that. Like you're gathering your requirements, you're gathering your ingredients for what you're making. And so just have a simple list of things that you think you can get, and then have like a sketch and put that into Talon, and then we can go from there. So Thursday, I want to talk about what you have included, your sketch and list, and just give you some feedback. And then we can just, work on your idea as you're able to. Does that work for everyone? Great. Yeah, because I want you to be excited about this. Um, okay, so we're gonna shift gears, and I just want to check in. Omar, are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so let's go ahead and have everyone pull up a copy of their ad revamp project. So even if it's not done, I I just want to have us see it and talk about, give feedback if we can. So just go ahead and pull that up, and then we're going to do screen sharing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Just want to go through these very briefly, and then let you free to work on whatever you need to, and then we'll come back at 3:45. Okay,
Would you like
so
the
go ahead.
mobile or the print ad?
Oh, both, or whatever you have. So the print one is the one that I really want to make sure you have done. And then the mobile one is if you have time and you're able to get it done, because it's good practice to have design in both of those. I'm going to go with the order that I see here, Ash.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and present. Great. And are you able to pull up, did you work on the mobile ad?
Yeah.
Okay, are you able to pull it up using the window a lot so you can have two files open at the same time?
I don't think so.
Okay, so if you go up into Photoshop, go into Window, and then go to Arrange at the top, and then do two up vertical. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's looking really good. Yeah, so you did the collapse navigation. Yep. And it's fine if you reuse the pictures that were on those websites, or if you decided you wanted to use other ones, it's totally fine. What we're looking for is how you're adapting the ad, your creative thinking here. So the actual images itself, they're kind of secondary to like, okay, how are they using this image? But yeah, good. You can see that headline very clearly. Good, good contrast. All right. So Ash, very briefly, could you just let us know why, or why you decided to design it this way?
Well, I decided to have the person who said the quote
Mm-hmm.
on the top, and then I found the same picture as a website that you
Mm-hmm.
posted, and I found one without the logo to make it more what they had, one
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
ads.
No, it's very sharp. I think your product shot and everything just pops out nicely. Yeah. Good job. All right. So we're gonna have you stop sharing. Great job. Okay, Augusto.
I got you.
What's that?
I got you.
Okay.
Uh, there you go.
All right. And do you have a mobile ad as well?
Yeah, not really
Okay.
the best.
That's fine. Let's just
Uh,
focus on this one then. So use the script font. So the one thing on my screen is that the quote text is hard to read against the background.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing that really pops out as like something that I would address. Um, you could potentially also put the A in Shiza on the next line next to ride,
Yeah.
because what what you try to do in copy, especially a headline, is not have an article like a or the end on that line if possible. Like if you look at newspaper headlines or magazine headlines,
Mm-hmm.
so I would try to end on like say a verb or a noun or an adjective.
All right. I could change that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I like the
no,
way it looked, but
yeah,
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 since you mentioned that, yeah.
yeah. There's just very small things to be aware of, right? Um, so you have this sort of strong sort of like rectangular design going on here. All your images are all rectangular, your text block is rectangular, your like logo and campaign is sort of in a box. And you have things very well organized because you're using the structure of the women to create this sort of diagonal line that separates the content too. Yeah, I think the colors and everything, the energy, everything is looking really sharp. On the skateboarder image, I would maybe offset that from the corner a little bit more, because
Mm-hmm.
down in the lower left hand corner there's just an edge of that larger image in the background. So it's almost like either put that secondary image in the corner or move it out a little bit more and maybe make it a little smaller.
What do you think would be best?
I don't know. You'd want to see it. Currently, you have the secondary images kind of clipping into the woman's arm, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess if you want to not reduce the size of the secondary, I would just move into that corner. Otherwise, if you want us to read more of what's there, I would make it smaller and have it move a little bit out of that corner. You just have to try it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
trial and error.
Yep. Otherwise, great job. Okay, Bree. Bree, are you okay? That's really good. The only thing that's missing is
Thank you.
yeah, the the thing that we're
The
missing though
picture.
are the two other images. And so this is a challenge because you have a lot of content that you're supposed to put into the layout. So we would want a product shot of some kind of shoes that we can see. Now I know that you have the shoes in the images, but in terms of a product shot, we're going to need to see it a little bit bigger. You know, this would be like the company saying we need to sell shoes. But I like the overall layout and design of it. It's got a nice sort of strong color palette of the pink and the blue in it. The text may in the quote may or may not hold up if you actually printed it in terms of legibility, especially near the bottom on that pavement. It's a little bit harder to read. But overall, it's a very nice. I like the image that you chose. It's very strong. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and close this one. All right, Galena.
Yeah. Let me get it pulled up. Can you see it?
Yeah. Can you move your
Yeah.
mobile one over just a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So, and that just to let everyone know that matte, that inside matte color, that reddish brown, um, was just something to put in there, not like a requirement. You could make it whatever color you want. But when I was looking at that picture that was in the hallway, it had a white version. But if you have white next to white without three-dimensional, you can't see the differences. So you don't have to keep that. The one thing I would say is that the mobile KEDs, it would probably the branding color would probably be it's blue, like what you have
Mhm.
on the poster ad. Um, but it's but the style that you have on your poster is very similar to some of those posters in the hallway that we're referencing here. There's a very clear sort of like headline. There's a very simple image, and then you've got the text, the story that's at the bottom. So you follow that pretty closely, whether you were aware of it or not, I don't know. Um, and so again, because of the assignment, we want to see in the ad the person,
Yeah.
the woman, and you kind of have a nice product slash, you're kind of merging the primary and secondary there. And so like Bree, if the shoes were easier to see more of the shoe for yours, that could potentially double as a product slash primary image too. But if I remember correctly, the one woman had her shoe like kind of flat, the bottom of it to you, and the other one was kind of far away. But this kind of zooming in on the product and you can still kind of see the representative figure could kind of work in that sort of primary and secondary together. So you can blur the lines here. On your mobile one, right, it's kind of in this similar vein. You can't see as much of the person in it, uh, but you definitely get a product shot in there. And then you have that sort of, you've got the products below as if like, here, go ahead and order these shoes. So I think the mobile one is a very good use of the mobile experience. You're thinking about the business, you're thinking about the user coming into it. The one thing I might change is that on my screen anyways, the gray is a little bit light. It's a little hard to
Mhm.
read, but I think the size looks like it could be appropriate. And you've given us a sense for what the experience is to come. So you're thinking about that web experience, which is very good. So very good job on both of these. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Haley, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So these are very strong print and mobile ad visual reflections. Very strong. What I might say here is that, let's see, the text in the middle is really close to the edge of the box on the left and right side.
Okay.
And with a font that's that thin, you're going to want to give it a little bit more breathing room.
Okay.
And this quote, as it is, it's a lot of words, right? It's really hard to use it impactfully in a small space. So it's a
Yeah.
good challenge. So if I were designing this
Mhm.
and working with whoever, I'd say, could we take a clip of that quote, right? So that we can make it bigger, right?
Mhm.
So I would go through and choose a section of that if I was going to use it that large. And so there's a little bit of a hierarchy confusion here because
Mhm.
the KEDS logo is really big.
Yeah.
And it's like larger than the campaign name, She's a Ride or Die.
Yeah.
And then the text, She's a Ride or Die, it's sideways, and it's kind of part of that upper left corner ad, the product ad. So to me, it's not clear that that is the campaign name, or is that just this image sort of subtitle?
Okay.
So to me, there's a little bit of visual confusion in terms of what things I should be reading. And then the two product images, because they're at the top, make me think that they're supposed to be the primary. But if you look at it from the whole image and the sense of like what the quote is sort of expressing, I feel like the group picture at the bottom should be the more of the primary image.
Okay.
So, and together the product images feel like they're almost equal in visual weight, and I would want to give them less visual weight to the primary image. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then on your mobile ad, I feel like looks like your text might be squished a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so designers who are trained like I was cringe when they see your font squished.
Yeah.
Uh, but you have you have better spacing in the box.
Mhm.
So again, think about like and this is a balancing act that you're doing. What's the spirit of the ad that you're conveying for a mobile experience? And so if this was a mobile design that I was looking at on the right, I would expect there to be like the logo up there and maybe like they call those three bars the hamburger navigation.
Okay.
So when you're in like what we've done before, when we've done these virtual critiques, look and see what everyone else is doing too. And feel free to ask either in class or outside of class, like, how did you do that? Or why did you do that? So that we can all learn together. So I feel like your mobile one needs to look a little bit more like a mobile design.
Okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, you got great, strong colors and good images and things. So well done.
Thank you.
Keaton.
Hi, I'm on my. Okay, there's
There
my
we go. Yep. And then you'll need your print ad.
For some reason, it's only letting me do one right now.
Okay. Let's look at your print ad first.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. So, and I like seeing like how, unless you've been talking and I don't know about it, like how some of your ads are very similar and how they're very different. So similar to Haley's, you have that quote like in the middle, and you decided to just block that section out completely with the white, kind of blending into that outside border.
Yeah.
And you kept a strong sort of blue and reddish tones, especially in the background. What I think the woman's face has got a reddish hat and he's got a bluish hat. The type is interesting, and I think it's interesting how you've separated it. Now, again, I talked with Augusto about the article at the end. She's a ride or die. So, and I know that you're trying to balance out like how many words or letters there are. So,
Yeah.
it's a give and take.
Yeah.
I think it's a very clean design. I think it's a very powerful design in some ways. I'm not
Nice.
sure what the X is down there between kids and the bee and the fox.
Oh, it was like supposed to, merge the in between the two companies for this whole company. So I
Oh,
was
okay.
trying to show how they combine this to be a
Okay. Yeah.
ad.
Okay. Yeah. It just looks. It doesn't look like it fits into my eyes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check that.
Yeah. Yeah. The only real question I have is the picture in the background
Hmm.
is what we usually don't want to do is obscure people's faces
Yeah.
unless so I don't really know that this image itself really fits because of we can't see, especially when this is about women, can't really see her face very well.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the intent is good. I just don't think the execution really works because, well, from what we can see the bottom part of her mouth, and we're not sure if she's angry, if she's like what, if she's happy. Like you can't see enough of the facial language to register what we should be reading off of that photo. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, so if you were to redo this and you couldn't find a better image that would fit in there, then you might need to think about, well, maybe what if I reoriented the text in a different way so we don't block that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting, it's bold how you split up that headline, but with this image you might end up having to just keep the headline together and maybe you have that blocked in the middle, and then you
Okay.
keep that quote part and you just move it down, below her face, maybe below her chin even.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah,
Cool.
that's great. Let's take a look at your
Nice.
mobile. Yeah.
Are you saying it?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, so we would, if this was mobile, we'd want to see some identifying things, usually at the top, letting us know it's mobile.
Okay.
And then also, my guess is as a business, because I am a business owner, that quote eats up too much space.
Okay.
You'd have the heads logo at the top, some sort of navigation indication, uh, and then the campaign name would probably be under that with the photo. And then you'd probably want to show at least one sort of product image. Like Galena's done
Okay.
a very good job. You can look at or talk to her even about her mobile setup. But yeah, I think for a mobile site, you kind of want to like people are spending one eye and one thumb of their attention on the website before they like flip it up or down. Yeah,
Okay.
good. All right, let's close that down. Good job,
Thanks.
Nadine.
Are you seeing it?
Yep,
Or
yep.
okay.
The one, it looks. Did you put those people into that image?
The one in the far back I did.
Okay. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. The normal image part with the woman on the swing looks a little bit squished in.
Yeah.
So I would not do that.
Yeah.
So make sure your images have the correct proportion, width and height, because it looks like her head is too skinny. It just doesn't look right. And the one in the background, the reason I asked that is the lighting on her doesn't quite fit in with the lighting on the person in the front, and they're not in the same physical space, but there's something off about the person in the back that doesn't quite match what I'm expecting. So think about like the angle of the lighting, and like, this applies to the fruit plate project especially. Like if I have this object in back, how is the lighting on it changing versus where she is? So the person in front on the swing has that sort of strong contrast on the right side, and the light is coming in from the left because of the shade of the tree. Um, and it's very likely that the person in the back would be less shaded, but there's just something about it that doesn't seem right to me. The other thing and you've got this sort of fun border of shoes. It's the other challenge that you have there is it's hard to read the text on the background. So even the text in the lower left corner, that greenish color and that reddish color, it's still they're too close in value in my eyes, my old eyes. And then the text on the tree is very difficult to read too.
Okay.
So I would think about simplifying it for legibility. Legibility always trumps like pizzazz or whatever style. If you can't read the text, then as an ad, it's not a successful ad. So that's what we want to convey for sure. So I would go back and revisit your text treatment. Even your headline is a little hard to read. And I don't know if you want to squint and see if you can read it or what, but make sure that there's enough contrast that we can obviously read it. And sometimes that just involves like what some students have done is blocking that out with a colored box and giving it, the space to live. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And same on the mobile. Think about when you look at a mobile device of a business site, like if you haven't, go to KEDS. If you have a mobile device, tablet or phone, go to the actual KEDS site and just look and see how they have the top of their website. What do you see? Like, do you see products? Do you see testimonials? Like, this is again looking at images for both print and digital. And I think what you'll find is you'll see a pattern, and then you can just apply that pattern to this exercise. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Livia.
You see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So this is Olivia has a very strong rectangular design aesthetic here too. She went the extra distance on the mobile, I can see here, right? So you have this sort of like antique-y colorization thing going on, building off of that reddish color, which I apologize if I made everyone think that was an important branding color. But I think you have a very interesting treatment here. You've colorized this, your scheme around that. You have that sort of product slash primary image. Your product image at the bottom takes that concrete sort of texture and colorization into play. You've treated the tertiary image as like part of this sort of history. And here you have the two women who are next to that quote. I think your print ad is really strong. The one thing I would probably recommend changing is instead of the black kids, make that their blue branding, right?
Yeah, I guess like I just didn't like how that looked with my color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess yeah, that's what they would want.
Yeah. So you could do it because you have, this is the thing, I think on your print ad, the logo is a little bit too small for their company. And in part because it's about twice the size as the logo on the back heels of the shoes at the top. So there's not as much contrast. So I don't know if you want to put it somewhere else and make it slightly larger or just make it larger there. But having like that KED's name repeated like 3 times in the same space might be just too much. But I think your placement of where it is really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you do go ahead and change the blue, you'll have to figure out how that cascades through the rest of your design. But I think aside from, a brand has a brand color usual. Aside from that, it's very well articulated. The text at the top, ride or die, is thin, but we can still read it. And then the text at the bottom, her name, Ashley Hooper, it's still very clear. We can read what that is. So again, legibility. So if you need to squint or look at one eye, can you still read it? That's sort of a test that I do when I'm looking at things. It's like, can I still read this? If the images weren't there, or if the images were something else, is it still legible? On your mobile one, I've seen like what you're doing here in the middle, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think, like I said, this quote is really long, right? So I think for us to really see the women's faces better, we would want to have a subsection of that quote, right? Just so that the words themselves have more power, because it's just a really long quote. But otherwise, I think you've done a nice job in terms of spacing and placement. It's just you can't see what's behind it very well. But very well
Yeah.
done. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
job. Omar, are you ready?
No, I am not. Sorry, I was sick and I
Oh,
don't
okay.
get the
That's okay.
time.
I hope you're feeling better. Yeah. So
Mhm.
we'll just you focus on getting better. We will move on. Yeah. Olivia?
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So you have like this sort of your type treatment definitely has changed the tone. The one thing that I think is this isn't the shoes that you have, the type on the shoes doesn't match the type you have in
Right.
your expressive headline. That's the only thing that pops out, and that could be a great thing, or it's obviously a strong contrast. Everything else has this sort of like seraphy feel to it. The images have a very strong, almost like 70s ish feel too. Can you zoom out a little bit so I can see your mobile ad a little bit more? There we go. Yeah, so again, mobile heading would be helpful. And when you look at this on a mobile phone, it's probably would be more blocky on your mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I think your mobile ad reads still more like a print poster in some ways. And the text at the bottom's just a little bit more contrast, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But so I would revisit, look at some websites on a mobile device and think about how does this translate more to that. I think it's still an attractive ad. The colors are different, like it's sort of more of a pink and blue versus the brown and blue and yellow on the other ad. Um, but it doesn't quite look mobile enough.
Okay.
And it's not that mobile is boring, but there are definitely some limitations that are every year we get to do something a little bit more creative with, but it's still primarily a rectangular design. And I'm not trying to limit you. I'm just trying to have you think about, well, what would this look like if it was in that format today? Seamus, are you able to present?
No, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Ricardo, are you able to present?
Yep.
And do you have a mobile or just a print?
I have the mobile one, but I didn't put like the navigation
Yeah,
stuff.
that's fine. We're still looking at it. If you could do that window. So I think the biggest challenge that I see here is that the the heavy text blocks are difficult to read on the background images.
Yeah.
And also, I feel like the hierarchy between the secondary and tertiary image is not strong enough. On the mobile ad, the skateboarder, because of its size and placement, looks almost like it's trying to me anyways, blend into that, into the person's photo. Same thing at the bottom, but from a different direction. Um, so I would probably advocate to make the tertiary image of the woman, even if it's just like just of her head, like almost like a mugshot or something.
Yeah.
Like give it some space and make the skateboarder stand out more, or something. I feel like they're too similar in size and scope, and also like the delineation between the two is not strong. I feel like it's too blurry, like they're not separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if that white line, I think the white line might work. Yeah, I don't know. I think focus on legibility and hierarchy, and and submit that, and we'll see. And if
Yeah,
you could
that's why I
add,
asked
yeah.
like if you pushed it back Thursday because I wasn't really too happy with it.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I feel like keep working on the hierarchy and spacing and things.
Yeah.
Keep working on it.
Yeah, I
I
definitely
th-
have a better idea of what I want to do now, like after looking at
yeah,
everybody else's, but
yeah, and people, and I just want to give everyone permission to do this. If you look at the quote and you're like, you know what, this sentence fragment or whatever really works really well, right? Go ahead. I give you permission to not have to use the entire quote.
okay.
Um, and like when you get into a position where you're working with clients and bosses, sometimes they'll like say, you know what, I didn't expect that to work, but it does, and then they'll say yes to it. Sometimes not. They'll say like, nope, you can't cut a word. So if you think that there's a better way to treat the quote, I do want you to have a piece of the quote in there, if not the whole thing. Then go for it. Like this is obviously like a challenge to fit this much content into the space. And with the mobile, we don't expect us to see it all at the top. So you have to prioritize and say, what's the most important thing to see above the fold, which is a reference to newspapers when you have it folded. What's the most important content do you see before you unfold it? So think about that. Like, what's really should we be focusing on here? Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Yep. Rachel, are you able to present?
Yep. Can you see it?
I can. So you're definitely like on the print end, you're like my branding color. On the mobile, you have the blue up there at the top. These are both very good. These are both, and there's definitely a relationship between the two. And that's something that as when you get into like marketing design things, if you're like in charge of the brand, you want to make sure that whatever's released under that brand has a similar look and feel to it. And I definitely feel like that's the case here. And so you decided to have a sans serif headlines at phosphate, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you built out these sections. I think it's really interesting how you separated the ad in a way by that shoe. It's kind of like in the axis. And you emphasize the quote significantly as like, this is a really important body copy for this ad. And I think the relationship between that quote and the picture is very strong. And it looks like you got rid of the kid in Ashley's picture.
Yeah.
Which is fine. So you could decide, because and it's fine that you have this space open to her left. But you could also decide, do I want her to be bigger? Do I want this image to be smaller? But I think it's really interesting. You've basically embraced this sort of, as I've been talking about, rectangular design, and you applied it to the print ad very well. It's very well organized, and the text follows the shapes very well. When we look at the mobile site, we see things blocked out like you would expect. And your products on the bottom almost make me think of like a gallery format, right? That is very common on websites. It's very well done. I would just probably say that the company might say on your print ad, can you make it blue in the bottom? But you kind of found a way to get out of color by making it white, even though white's a color. Good job.
Thanks.
Noah, are you here? I don't see Noah. Okay. Peyton.
Are you seeing it?
Yeah. Yeah, so strong color usage there. The one thing that is a little difficult to read on the mobile version is that ride.
Well, my thing behind it is, yeah, probably on this, but like on a phone, people
Mhm.
get pretty close to their phones. But I guess I could change it. It's just like the shoe color, so I wanted to go.
Yeah. No, I think the intent is good, and I'm just having a little bit of contrast issue when I'm looking at it. But I think the color matching and everything is very strong. It's just a little bit iffy, and also because text online, HTML text, that's a little bit more challenging to get the overlap unless you make it an image, which makes it not as accessible. And accessibility is something that um, your website, your company that has a website, your company can get sued if their website is not accessible, right? So this is something that people need to be aware of when they design headings and things for websites. Can people who are blind, get at the content? And if not, you need to fix that sort of thing. So in terms of like the text usage, you'd probably need to have a fallback if you kept it that way for people with screen readers or otherwise to get access to that title. Does that make sense?
Not really.
Okay. So do you work on websites at all?
What?
Do you create websites?
No.
Okay. So there's a law in effect that says if your content is not accessible, if people with whether it's old age or disabilities can't get to your content on a website, your company can be sued legally.
So you're
Uh,
saying that what's wrong with it that somebody couldn't get to it? That's what I'm not understanding.
yeah, so the treatment of your headline on the mobile would
Okay.
create problems for that company, right? So it's not impossible to do with enough CSS. I'm just letting you know, right? It's as someone who's worked in the industry that you can make that headline on a mobile site as HTML text that you manipulate using CSS. You can also make it as an image. And if it was an image, you'd have to create a fallback design for people who need to have access to the content. So that it's just an aside. The text that is on the mobile is near the top is a little bit too close to the logo and a little bit too close to the edges of that window, in my opinion. You have that text below the shoes. It's just really tight. And I would probably, so you could probably like think about the hierarchy between the logo and the headline, right? Most companies are going to have the logo up in the like navigation header area, and it kind of frees it up on a website so you don't have to have it again lower. On the magazine spread, I think that works really well. But on the mobile, it kind of feels like it's competing with the headline in some ways. Another thing to be careful of with a lot of text and centering it, that can create reading issues. It slows down the reader. If you have more than 2 or 3 lines of centered text, it's very common for your eyes to get tired. But otherwise, I think the organization of the products and things, especially in the magazine, is very strong. Very good use of color and shape.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the way that you have the shoe, left and right shoe on the mobile is fun, powerful and pretty, kind of facing out from each other. Just be careful of the spacing. The text in that section also, there's not enough white space above and below that quote. So again, giving you permission to take a subset of that quote text to give you that breathing room around it. All right, great job. Ryan,
Yep.
go ahead and present.
So I'm not like completely done yet, but this is what I have going on.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. So it looks like in this version, you've decided to make the tertiary image also the primary image.
yeah, I was thinking about changing that and finding
Mhm.
a different way to make like tertiary and then secondary and like all of those things
Yep.
because I feel like it's a little confused.
Sure. I think one of the exciting things you have going here is the asymmetrical design, where you have a sense of, especially in the mobile, you have that white line in the middle. That's almost like a horizon separation line, but on the print one, you kind of blur that distinction on the left side, with that text box. And what you've done is a common magazine thing where they make the quotation marks. You'll see this in a lot like Fast Company or ESPN or those sort of larger name companies. They'll take the quotes and make that into almost like an image of itself. And then you also did a similar thing with the logo. You made it into like a tag inset or outset. And then you put the text alignment with that. So what I see here, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it makes me think that Ryan, you are someone who looks at magazines a fair amount. Is that correct or not?
I'm a big fan of layout design.
Yeah. So I
So
definitely see some magazine inspired layouts here. On the mobile, we have the headline pushed down into the main body mass of the figure. So the woman's head is sticking up, almost like when you look at text, you have like the eye, the dot of the eye or something, an ascender sticking up. So it creates a more dynamic flow. And it's a very sort of diagonal dynamic flow on that page. So I think it's a very strong design. It's very compelling. You have a strong contrast with the products and that open white space, right? And then you've got the images sort of grounding that. So very well done.
thank you.
All right. Is there anyone that I missed? Okay. Well, go ahead and finish those or revise them and get them into Talon for Thursday if you can. Thursday's going to be primarily, like I said, a work day. What I think for today, I think I'm going to revise today just a little bit. Let me look here. What I think might be useful is if instead of discussing one by one the fruit plate progress, what I like to do is if there's anyone who would like to have critiqued their fruit plates right now in progress, get feedback, I would be more than happy to open that up. So does anyone interested in sharing their fruit plate progress? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
One moment and I'll get it pulled up.
Also, I want to get the class feedback. Was what we're doing today and last class where we go through the assignments and critiquing them. Has that been fairly helpful? Good. What I'd like to do, and it might just be too cumbersome, is have you discuss the work with one another. I know there are those rooms that you can open up. So I'll see if I can do that with either the montage or another project later on. But I want to give you an opportunity to discuss and get feedback, not just from me, but from anyone else in the class too.
Am I good to share?
Yeah, go for it. Okay. So Rachel has a very clean and shiny plate now. The reflections are pretty strong. So your red apple in front looks a little, to me, it looks a little distorted. I don't know why that is. The shadows, I think if you look at this, I think the shadows, the lighting is kind of coming from different directions. If you look at the background, the table, I feel like the lighting is kind of coming from the back center area, and then it's, and you've got, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. You've got a very bright light coming on the bananas, almost from underneath the bananas or sideways. Does that make sense, Rachel?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you have, to me, it seems too bright, the light coming on the bananas, and then the grape lighting is kind of in front. And so I feel like the lighting direction hasn't been solidified on your objects quite yet. You might want to consider adjusting the bananas in relationship to the apple a little bit more. The apple feels a little bit two-dimensional. you should probably have some shadows underneath the fruit in the front. The transparency in the glass looks good. Your muffin has a shadow that's coming from the upper right, diagonal down to left, that dark area, and the shadow doesn't quite look right. It doesn't quite match what I think it should be, and you're probably going to have a shadow under your plate as well. I think the general layout of things is pretty strong. I think it's the lighting and the way the shadows are cast that doesn't quite sell it for me on this yet.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else have fruit? Okay. So, like I said, I want you to keep working on the fruit plate progress. Like, really look at the lighting. That's really key in what we're doing with this to make it look like they belong together. And if possible, try to get some objects similar in size and shape to look at with the lighting. That's going to really help. Considering you're working with these objects that were all photographed with different angles of lighting and sizes and resolutions. But really keep honing that. So I'm going to go back to the announcements really quick here. Is make sure you have the in the moment images in. All of the assignments should be open. So if you want to go back and double check those, because this pool of images that we're all going to have access to is really going to benefit from everyone having, have contributed to it, obviously, so that we have some great selections to choose from. And then just keep working on the assignments. I want to give people room to breathe in this virtual classroom. So, for example, we're going to have primarily an open lab Thursday and Tuesday as well, mostly. So I'm going to give you time to work on these things, to think about them, and just deal with the crazy life that we have going on out there as well. So are there any questions, comments, anything that we can address right now before I let you go? All right, I don't see any comments or hear anything. So I'm gonna let you go and we will meet again on Thursday. Thank you very much.